Welcome to Redditenderbender. We give Reddit stories their deserving endings because we hate being left hanging. I, 31 female, have been with my partner, 38 male, for 13 years. We have an 8-year-old son together. In that entire time, he's never really expressed emotion. He doesn't get angry, he doesn't get sad, but he's always in a happy mood. We don't fight, ever. We get along incredibly. He's never hit me or raised his voice to me. He's never insulted me. He's the perfect father and partner. 2 weeks ago, we drank Fireball together on a Friday night. We went to bed and he tried to initiate sex, but wasn't getting hard, so I asked him to stop. He continued trying to force himself on me, and when I screamed, "No," our son came into the room to ask what was going on. He told him it was nothing and to go back to his room, so he did. I continued to say no, and he continued forcing, and when I started screaming, he held his hand over my mouth and my nose, so I couldn't breathe. Our son could hear muffled screaming coming from our room, so he came back. I started to black out, but our son got on top of him to try to pull him off of me. He shoved him off the bed. And during that time, I was able to get away. I grabbed our son and ran out of the house, screaming for somebody to call the cops. Our neighbor did, and the cops came. He told them that I was bipolar. That's true, and that I was having an episode, and that they should just leave. They did. I went back to bed with him. The next morning, he tried to cuddle me, and I screamed at him. He asked what was wrong, and I told him what he did that night. He said he remembered the cops being called, but thought it was because I was having an episode, not because of anything he did. I explained to him what happened, and he sobbed and apologized. He spent the last 2 weeks completely sucking up to me and trying to get me to forgive him. I don't know how to reconcile the man that I've loved for the last 13 years with the man that he became that night, and I don't think I'll ever forgive him for hurting our son and putting him through that kind of trauma. I grew up in a really traumatic background, and I had promised never to let my son see something like that, and I failed. We just went back to pretending like nothing happened. My son and I are in therapy together, and we talked about it with the therapist. He told me he doesn't want me to leave, and that he'll watch over him and make sure he doesn't drink, and he'll protect me. That he just wants to get stronger to protect me. It breaks my effing heart that he thinks like that. An 8-year-old should never have to shoulder that kind of responsibility. The other day, I was asked, "Do you feel safe at home?" And I know that I've always answered automatically in the past, but this time I had to think about it. There's something that sticks with me that one of my coworkers said one day. I told them how he doesn't ever express emotions and he doesn't ever cry or get angry. She said, "He's going to snap and unalive you guys someday." And I can't stop thinking about what she said. Here's where the advice comes in. I know that it's totally up to me whether I stay or I go, but it doesn't really feel like it is. I am so dependent on him for everything. The house we own is in his name. The cars we own are in his name. I work an hour and 15 minutes away from where we live, and I take a van pool to commute every day. I don't know how I would leave financially if I wanted to. I wouldn't have a home. I wouldn't have a car. I wouldn't have a place for our son to live, and I don't think I could leave without my son. I'm wondering what resources are out there for people who are completely dependent on their partner for everything, and how to leave should I decide to. We'll pick up the story after the incident. First, let's find out what happens if OP stays with her partner. In the weeks after that really rough night, things started to change in unexpected ways. The guy I'd known for a long time, who always seemed so strong, started opening up to me in ways I never thought he would. He realized how serious his actions were, so he really committed to looking at himself and talking to someone for help. He was really determined to change, and he started showing his feelings more. We had lots of talks where we cried and shared our pain and fears. It was like he had been holding back his feelings for a long time, and now he was finally letting them out. Even our son was relieved to talk about what happened. We had family meetings where we talked honestly about that night and how we felt about it. The therapist helped us understand and forgive each other. We all had a lot of different feelings, and it was all pretty messy. As time went on, we became even closer. We found strength in being honest with each other, and we started to rebuild our family in a new way. My son amazed me with how strong and brave he was. With the therapist's help, he got better at understanding his feelings and how he fit into our healing process. One day, after we had a family meeting, my partner surprised us with a letter. He wrote about how sorry he was for what happened and how much he loved us. He promised to keep going to therapy, work on himself, and make sure that the bad night wouldn't happen again. It felt like things were finally starting to look up. Slowly, we started to rebuild trust. The bad memories were still there, but they didn't sting as much. They were reminders of how we worked together to heal and get better. Our home, which used to feel like a haunted place, started to feel like home again, where we laughed, loved, and shared good times. The therapist also helped us with practical stuff, like finances and making plans for the future. We ended up splitting up, but we stayed friendly and supportive of each other. Our friends and family were really there for us too, providing emotional support and being there for us when we needed them. My son was so strong. Over time, he started to feel less like he had to protect us all the time. He realized that it was our job as parents to take care of him, not the other way around. He started to feel safe again, and he grew up happy and carefree. So, the story that seemed like it could never be fixed ended up with a happy new start. The love we had for each other, which we used to hide, became stronger and deeper. We came out of the tough times stronger and smarter, all because we worked through the hard things together. When I look back on what happened, I remember that getting better doesn't happen in a straight line. It's a complicated journey with lots of ups and downs. But through everything, our family learned the power of understanding each other, talking openly, and finding strength in being open. The memories of the tough times might not go away completely, but they show how strong we are and how we went from a bad place to a new, hopeful, and happy one. Now, let's find out what happens if OP's story takes a different turn and things unfold in a way OP could never have imagined. In the weeks after that really confusing night, things got super weird, unexpectedly. The man I thought I knew, who was always really emotionally stable, suddenly turned into a big mystery. One morning, while I was having my coffee, he walked in wearing a bright green cape and a fancy eyeglass, saying he was now Captain Emotion, with the power to feel everything all at once. Our son started laughing, and I couldn't help but join in. It felt like someone from another world was rewriting the story of our lives to be a really strange comedy. His journey of figuring himself out took a strange turn. He started showing his feelings in the most bizarre ways. Instead of just saying sorry, he'd create these elaborate poems about his feelings and recite them while wearing a fancy hat and pretending to twirl a mustache. Our therapy sessions got really odd. We'd all sit in a room filled with silly accessories like feather boas and rubber chickens, and sometimes we'd even do strange dance routines. Our therapist, who was really nice, tried to go along with it, even though I could tell they were a bit confused too. They guided us through this strange therapy adventure that made us question what was real and what wasn't. Our son, who used to be really upset about that night, found comfort in this new weird way of doing things. He made up complicated games about emotions and even created a language made of sound words. Our house, which used to be serious and quiet, became a place of silliness and fun, and it surprisingly seemed to be helping. But then, one night, our lives turned upside down. In an instant, the man I loved turned into a monster. He was filled with rage and darkness. His anger got out of control, and he hurt me both physically and emotionally. I felt like I was in a nightmare. I knew there was no hope for us anymore. His promises of change and healing were just empty words in the face of his escalating violence. I could see my son, so young and vulnerable, carrying the burden of seeing his mom get hurt and the fear of his dad's anger. I wished with all my heart that I had been strong enough to leave and get my son away from this awful situation. As I watched my son, it dawned on me with chilling clarity that he had decided that the only way to save my life was to do something unthinkable. My son looked at me with eyes that were both determined and scared. His small hands were shaking as he thought about what he was about to do. In a moment that felt like an eternity, he did it. He took action to protect me, to free me from the horrors we were living through. The room was silent except for the sound of my sobs and his heavy breathing. As I lay there, my life forever changed. I held my son close, my heart breaking for the sacrifice he had made. When I realized what my son had done, I was heartbroken. He had gone to such great lengths to protect me, and it had taken a huge toll on him. Our lives were forever changed after that. I felt so guilty, knowing that he had been forced to bear a burden that no child should ever have to carry. I still think about those tragic moments often, and my heart aches for the innocence that was stolen from him. I know that he will carry these scars with him forever, but I hope that he can find healing and peace. Therapy was tough. We had to relive all the pain and trauma, and it was hard to understand why we had to make the choices we did. Looking back, I'm so sad for my son. He had to go through so much, and he'll carry those memories and scars forever. Our story is a reminder of how much darkness can affect our lives. It's also a reminder that sometimes we have to make hard choices, even if they hurt us deeply. But I know that we're both stronger now. We've survived the darkness, and we're coming out the other side. Now, let's hear the version of this story in which OP is forced to make some hard choices. The weeks after that night were a whirlwind of emotions. I was angry, hurt, confused, and scared. The man I had loved and trusted for so long had betrayed me in a way I never thought possible. His apology didn't make it any better. The hurt was still there, and it was even worse knowing that our son had seen it all. Months went by, but the hurt didn't fade like my partner hoped. I couldn't stop thinking about how my son had tried to be brave and protect me, or about what my coworker had said, which kept haunting me like a bad omen. Every day was a battle between the love I used to feel and the fear that was growing inside me. I talked to my therapist about it, and they were so understanding. They listened to me and helped me through the tough times. We also had therapy sessions together with my son, and that really helped us talk about what happened. It was hard, but it was also important. My son's words, when he talked about wanting to keep me safe and be strong, really broke my heart. No kid should have to worry about things like that. One night, when things were really rough, I made a tough decision. We sat down at the kitchen table, and I told my partner what I was thinking. I was sad and determined at the same time. I said we needed to live apart. He had tears in his eyes, just like me. For a moment, my partner looked like the strong front he'd been putting up for years was gone. Deciding to split up was a huge decision. There was so much to think about, and it felt overwhelming. I had to figure out where I was going to live, how I was going to get around, and how I was going to give my son a stable life. It was a lot to take on, and I felt like I was drowning at times. I knew I couldn't stay because I was scared. My coworker's words had stuck with me, and I realized that my safety and well-being were the most important things, even if it meant facing challenges I didn't know anything about. I started looking for help from people who had been in similar situations, people who had to start over completely. I found support groups, legal help, and places to stay. Each thing I found was a small step towards becoming independent again. I had to be strong for myself and my son. It was a really tough journey, but I learned a lot about myself and grew as a person. I held on to the hope that things would get better, even if it meant saying goodbye to the man I had loved for a long time. In the end, the relationship that I thought would last forever didn't. Our life together fell apart, and we became a broken family. It was tough, but I kept believing that there was a better future for my son and me. A future where we could be happy and free from the bad things that had happened. What would you have done in OP's shoes? Which ending was the best? Please tell me in the comments below. In this story, the OP tells a tale of lies and betrayal that is all too common. I, 29 female, have been married to my husband, 33 male, for a year, together for 4. My husband was in a long-term relationship from high school to his early 20s. He has 2 children with this woman, ages 14, 12. My husband had split with this woman because she was unfaithful to a new level. She would bring different men home while he was deployed. He never questioned his kids being his, because he was unaware this was happening before his second child was born. A few weeks ago, my husband's ex was trying to skip our weekend with him, and my husband wouldn't stop bringing it up, and his ex dropped that. Stop caring about him so much. Guess what? He isn't even your son. My husband didn't believe her at first, but the anxiety was piling on him. He ended up getting a DNA test, and his 12-year-old was not his. My husband doesn't love his son any less, and he still wants him every week. He raised that boy. He is his son. Though he is crushed, he had a breakdown on me, crying. My husband went through 2 tours, went through years of pests, and this woman made my strong, surviving husband cry. I am so heartbroken for him, but have so much rage towards her. He's trying to decide if he should tell his son or not, but he doesn't want his son to think his father thinks less of him. My husband is dealing with so many things in his head right now and is hurting so badly. He's not himself. I just want to help ease some of it. Advice? Let's explore this first ending, which represents a best-case scenario. We pick up the story where OP's husband has a hard decision to make about his son. The days after were tough. My husband, who was always so strong, seemed to be carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. His eyes, which used to be so full of life, were now sad and distant. The news that his 12-year-old son wasn't his biological child had really shaken him up. It was like the foundation of his world had been shattered. As we learned more about the truth, our family started to crumble. The happy sounds that used to fill our home were replaced by quiet and sad moments. Even though my husband had raised his son with so much love, he now felt like a reminder of lies and hurt. But my husband still loved him a lot. Even though things were really tough, the pain seemed to seep into everything we did, making our moments together feel full of doubt and sadness. In the quiet moments, I could see my husband struggling with his feelings. He looked at old pictures, and the faces in them didn't seem to mean the same to him anymore. The room that used to feel safe now felt like a place filled with painful memories. He held on to his son, hoping to find a way to heal the hurt inside him. He thought about telling his son the truth a lot, but he was scared it might make things worse. So he kept it to himself, feeling like he had to put on a brave face even though he was hurting inside. It was like he was living 2 different lives, one where he pretended to be happy for us, and another where he felt really sad and torn up about what he knew. Our love, which used to be a source of hope, now felt strained because of all the sadness. I tried really hard to make him feel better, but it felt like we were drifting apart. His pain was like a wall between us that I couldn't break through, no matter how much I cared about him. In this version, we get a glimpse of what could have happened if OP and her husband revealed the truth they learned. In the weeks that followed, things started to change a lot. My husband, who was always so strong, showed how tough he really was. Even though finding out that his 12-year-old son wasn't his biological child was a huge shock, it didn't break him. Instead, he saw it as a chance to grow and heal. After things settled down a bit, we faced the truth together as a family. I supported my husband and reminded him that love is about more than just blood. It's about the time we've spent together, the things we've learned, and the close connection we share. Even though his son doesn't share his genes, he still has a place in his heart. Even in the midst of all the craziness, we started laughing more. We fully embraced my husband's son, celebrating his one-of-a-kind qualities and the strength of their bond. The pain from before started to fade away, replaced by happiness and good times. My husband finally told his son the truth, and it went way better than he thought it would. His son, who was surprisingly mature for his age, understood that family is more than just DNA. Their bond got even stronger as they went through this new phase together, supporting each other every step of the way. As we started to heal, my husband found comfort in talking to me about his feelings. Our relationship grew even deeper as we faced these challenges together as a team. The love that brought us together in the first place only got stronger, proving our commitment to each other. And so, the story that started with a really tough truth turned into a story of strength and love. Our family realized that we can handle anything if we stick together and have each other's backs. With every new day, my husband's smile came back. It was a smile that showed he had been through a lot, but had come out stronger. Our home was once again a place of laughter, reminding us that happiness can come back after even the toughest times. What would you have done in OP's shoes? Which ending was the best? Tell me in the comments below. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because you won't want to miss a single captivating story. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.